Good afternoon and welcome to Animal Protection New Mexico's Dissection Choice Town Hall. I'm Sarah Norton-Sanner, the Major Gifts Officer for Animal Protection New Mexico. And with me today is co-host Dorte Hutchinson, our Chief Development Officer. Dorte will be running our presentation for today's session. For those of you who may not be familiar with Animal Protection New Mexico, we are a statewide organization that protects animals by creating social change, resulting in the humane treatment of all animals. We thank you for being here today and for your interest in learning more about dissection choice for students in New Mexico schools. A little bit of housekeeping. At the end of the presentation, we're going to do a Q&A session. You can type your questions into the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your screen. Questions can be submitted at any time throughout the presentation. You'll also see questions from others, and if you upvote a question that someone else has already asked, it will bring it to the top of the list. Now, I'm very excited to introduce to you our wonderful speakers for this afternoon, Leslie Rudloff, Nicole Green, and Alisa Brooks. Leslie is the Chief Program and Policy Officer for the Animals in Science Department here at APNM. For more than 12 years, Leslie has used the legal system to promote non-animal alternatives in medical research and education. One of Leslie's significant focus areas is the use of open government laws at both the state and federal level to highlight the unnecessary use of animals in medical research. Nicole Green is the Director of Animalearn, an education program of the American Anti-Vivisection Society, AAVS, located in Pennsylvania. Nicole has worked at AAVS for over 20 years, helping to enlighten the public about the many innovative non-animal resources that can be used in place of traditional dissection labs. Additionally, Nicole serves as an advisor for the Association of Professional Humane Educators. Nicole has an MA in Education and Innovation with an emphasis in humane education. And Alisa Brooks, she is the Assistant Director of Animalearn and the Administrator of the Science Bank, the largest lending library of humane non-animal alternatives in the US. Alisa has a Bachelor's in Science in Early Childhood and Elementary Education, and has previously worked as a veterinary tech for 10 years. Alisa is able to use her education and background in veterinary medicine to inform others of the benefits of non-animal teaching methods in education from K through college, including veterinary programs. She enjoys spending time with her human and animal family, which includes 3 cats and 2 dogs. Thank you to Leslie, Nicole, and Alisa for spending time with us today and sharing your expertise. Now I'm going to turn it over to Leslie to start our presentations.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I just say something to the moderator, Dorte? If she could enable the chat for the registrants, that would be wonderful. I think I just got a message about that. Anyway, I'm Leslie Rudloff. I'm here to talk about dissection choice policy in New Mexico, a little bit about a success story that we had at APNM, and also what APNM is doing to sort of publicize the student choice law or policy in New Mexico. So the next slide, please. So back in 2005, the New Mexico Public Education Department adopted a policy saying that if a student is asked to dissect an animal and they have an objection to that based on ethical, moral, cultural, or religious reasons, they are going to be supplied an alternative. And as you can see on the right, there are lots of different varieties of alternatives. I listed them out here, but I'm going to tell you that my friends at Animalearn are going to go into great detail about all the great alternatives there are available now. So I'll pass on to my next slide. So New Mexico is unique in that they ask the New Mexico School Board to develop policy themselves. So there's no statute that's passed by the legislature in New Mexico, but instead it's a policy that's drafted by the New Mexico Public Education Department. Next slide, please. So last year in 2022, we were approached by a supporter of ours who was shocked when her child came home from school with a permission slip that said that she would be required to dissect an animal. Our supporter was really shocked by that because she didn't even think dissection was still a thing in schools. So we informed her about New Mexico's student choice policy. And she went back to her daughter's teacher and requested that she provide an alternative for her daughter. And the teacher was actually thrilled by the request and ended up using the alternative, which was a clay model to learn about brains for the entire class. The students loved the classroom, the classroom curriculum with the clay modeling. And after the lesson, the teacher talked about how she was secretly happy that no one had to dissect animals in the class. So that sort of sparked this campaign that we've started at APNM about that people don't know that New Mexico has a student choice policy. And so we have developed a fact sheet, which actually on the next slide, I can talk about a little bit about what we're doing. We're doing this town hall. We also developed a fact sheet that's on our website. We have a page dedicated to dissection choice where we have a fact sheet about how the animals are sourced that are used in dissection, what kind of effects that dissecting animals have on the environment, the children's health. And we also have sample letters and emails that you can use to communicate with your teacher or maybe your administration about choosing the alternative. And lastly, you can contact me if you have questions or you need someone to help you find resources like Animalearn. We can help with that. And you can see my email addresses there listed at the bottom. The next slide is how to find us on the web and how to find us on social media for all the things we do to protect humans and animals across New Mexico. And that's it for my presentation.
Thank you so much, Leslie. It's really nice to hear that you're doing this and doing all this work to make the issue of dissection choice something that is recognized in New Mexico. We're so happy to be able to collaborate with you all today and to be able to bring a lot of different resources into those people that are here, into your toolboxes, and to kind of put into your minds to think about as different talking points when we're talking about the issue of animals used in education. What we want to do is we want to really promote those non-animal resources as a program. As grassroots activists, I can understand where you all are coming from. I got my start as a grassroots activist, so I'm right there with you, and I'm very passionate about what I do. I've been a vegan for 30 years now, and I've worked as an activist, got my start in New Jersey as an activist. So if you want to go to the next slide. I'm not sure if anyone here has the ability to raise their hand, but I think before we go on, I did want to kind of get an idea of who is here. If you're a student, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, maybe that's something we can find out eventually. But if you have had the experience of dissection in education, can you raise your hand? Let us know. I know that's something that I was faced with as a young middle school student. It was very traumatic for me, but I was partnered with someone who did want to do the dissection. So she did all of the dissections, most of the dissections for those experiences. But, you know, when you are dissecting and when students are commonly faced with dissection, you can think of a lot of different descriptors. right? You can be sad, you can be traumatized, you can feel disgusted, you can feel lots of different ways when you're confronted with a dead animal in a dissection pan. So that's why we're here at Animalearn. We really want to address that issue because we want to help nurture a respect for animals who are used in education. And the way that we try to do that is through a dissection loan program, which is called the Science Bank. So if you go to the next slide, I can kind of give you a little bit of a backstory on the Science Bank. So back in the late 90s, we decided, how can we raise awareness about the issue of dissection and non-animal methods? How can we get those resources into the hands of teachers? So we decided to create this loan program called the Science Bank. And back then there are about 4 or 5 different loan programs in the United States. But currently the Science Bank is the only loan program in the US that is still doing something, offering products for all different education levels. So technology, models, AR, VR types of technology for those students and educators that want to learn without harming animals in education. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the Science Bank in a little bit. If you want to go on to the next slide. So I wanted to give a few fast facts about dissection. While I said, students are traumatized, students are faced with having to dissect many different animals, 80% of North American students are going to be dissecting animals, and they may not be venturing into a science career because they were turned off by the experience. So, many of these animals were sacrificed really for no reason whatsoever. And every year in the United States, there are between 10 and 12 million animals that are commonly used from K to 12 education, and even more are used in college and university labs as well. Fortunately, and they will die for a one-time experience. They'll suffer and die for a one-time learning experience. So that's a sad waste of life. So in the United States, as Leslie said, New Mexico is one of the states that gives students the right to opt out of dissection. One of the things that we do at Animalearn is we advocate on behalf of legal rights, choice policies across the United States. As I said, I was a student in New Jersey who, did not speak up about dissection, but I was a student in the 80s. So at that point, there was no student choice policy in New Jersey. But as a person who worked in Animalearn, I was able to advocate on behalf of the policy in New Jersey that was passed. So that was one positive thing about my experience working here, and we continue to do that. And and we're happy to hear that New Mexico is one of the states that gives students those rights to opt out of dissection practices. Next slide, please. So why should you take the leap into humane science? Obviously, for the animals, I would say the majority of you that are here for the animals. We care about animals. That's why I became an activist, because I care. And animals have been used for decades. They've been used for over a century at this point. Classrooms were much different back 100 years ago. The technology is much more advanced. But today, these animals are very typically displayed as they are in this image. This is an image of a fetal pig that I took at a science teacher conferences that was on display for a forensic science unit. And that's how they're displayed. That's how they're packaged, coming from biological supply companies that are selling them to the schools. But where are they coming from initially? Animals are coming from a variety of different places. It's not just farm animals that are being used. It's cats and dogs, frogs, birds, snakes, fish, snakes, you name it. They're basically being dissected. And they're coming from, as I said, they're coming from biological supply companies. But before that, they're coming from the wild. Frogs, who are the most commonly dissected animal, are commonly taken from the wild. They're coming from shelters. Cats and dogs are commonly used, taken from shelters and used for dissection purposes, factory farming and the fishing industry. And mink are very commonly used as replacements for cat dissection. So obviously we know that minks are a byproduct of the fur industry. So we have a lot of work to do. I mean, a lot of these issues you may hear me talk about are issues that we really care about. We care about animals who are used for food, animals who are used, in fact, for the fur industry, animals taken from shelters. So this issue is really something we all should be taking time to work on and to invest resources into, because we all have the ability to change people's minds and to encourage them to use alternatives. Next slide.
So another reason that we're here is for the students. There are humane students and they are our future. So, AnimalLearn exists for students to be able to reach out, and we offer guidance on, if they don't want to participate in a dissection, if they want to opt out and they want to know what their choices are, we're here to help guide them, whether it be in their school district, in their local, their county, or their state, and let them know what their rights are, what their options they have, and we help guide them on how to talk to their teachers, how to approach their teachers, and if need be, how to discuss and take it further and speak with administration. We also are here for parents as well. So the faces on the screen are some of our humane students that we've come across over the past few years. The two in the middle were recognized by AnimalLearn this past year in 2022 as Humane Students of the Year. Rose is on the bottom. She was our Humane High School student, you can see with her guinea pig. And Laura is the top middle, and she was our Humane College student. There are also, a lot of faces that you don't see. There's a lot of students that are afraid to speak up. They might feel like they don't want to cross the teacher or offend anyone, or, they don't feel like they're supported, or maybe they're the only one that feels that way. So we exist and help, guide them. We provide a voice for them and let them know that there are other students who have been in their shoes, who are currently in their shoes, and they don't have to be afraid to speak up, and they can speak up for themselves, and they can speak up for the animals as well. Laura's story, she's a student in college, and she is a pre-med biology major, and she believes that you don't have to do dissection in order to study for a medical career. She was basically called an extremist by her biology professor, for refusing to participate in dissections this past year. So she had to address that with her heads of departments, and then further up in her college administration, in order to be able to have an alternative for that dissection, and in order to pass the class. Essentially, the teacher was, threatening her and with failing, and which would ultimately harm her career. So, she stood right up, stood right up against those adults, and was able to get an alternative, and she was recognized by her college paper, and that's how we came across her, and we began communicating with her, and she's just awesome. She turns out she had started a humane club in her high school, so definitely somebody who's not afraid to speak her voice.
And now she's starting her own animal rights club at her university, which is
Yes.
really awesome to hear, because we've supported her. We've given her those tools to be able to really stand up. But, there's a lot of students like that too, that are faced with adversity, that really kind of take off and become a real wonderful advocates for animals.
Yes. And then we had one parent in Arizona, so close to you guys in New Mexico, who just reached out to us. She has a 7th grade son who's a vegetarian and was refusing to participate in the fetal pig dissection for his science class. And she wanted to know, what she could do to support her son, and were there alternatives. And so we were able to provide her with a fetal pig model through the Science Bank, which is our lending library, and also provide her with resources which she was able to provide to the teacher. So, some students also have dietary reasons why they refuse to participate. And, you know, as Nicole mentioned earlier, where these animals are coming from, you know, some teachers are going, well, you know, instead of contributing to, you know, that type of industry, we'll just use chicken wings and do a chicken wing dissection or something along those lines. And students are still uncomfortable with that as well. So, you know, we want to make sure that they are heard and they are advocated for across the board. If you could change the slide, please. Thank you. So this is a map that shows some of the states. So if you look and see, the darkest states are the 21 states and Washington, D.C., which have passed dissection choice laws and policies for K through 12 students. If there is an educator from one of those states, they are legally required to provide an alternative to the student that does not want to dissect. And the student cannot be penalized for opting out of dissection in those states. The next slate of states are states that have Department of Education policies or state resolutions. Now that is where New Mexico falls into as well. And then the lightest color state where you see like Texas, those states have opt-out provisions. And then states with no color have nothing regarding dissection. So one of the reasons Animalearn is here is to advocate for policies, get legislation passed so that the entire map can be that dark color. We want state laws in every state to protect the animals and the students for dissection choice. And I did look into a few Department of Education or school district websites in New Mexico, looked at Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Mountain Air, Rio Rancho, and on those websites, in their board policies and in the student handbooks, there is no mention of the dissection specific policy for New Mexico. How they handle it is called controversial issues. And if a student is uncomfortable with a controversial issue that the teacher is addressing, they can request an alternative and the teacher will then have to provide an alternative. But there is no specific wording for dissection at all. So, you know, that's a little bit unsettling since there is that Department of Education policy, but it's not being made known to the students of the state. So, you know, we really want to get that map turned all that dark color. If you could change the slide. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. The wording on the slide is the specific wording in the New Mexico Department of Education policy as well. So if you wanted to read that specifically, that's the wording. If you could change the slide, please.
Okay. So thank you so much. We're also excited though, because we've got so much support from teachers, science educators who are caring and compassionate and want to see kind science education. And one of the things that we do at Animalearn is we recognize those teachers who are going above and beyond for their students and for animals. By honoring them as our Humane Science Educators of the Year. This is our 2022 Humane Science Educator of the Year, Brianna Clark, who is from California. And obviously, as you can see from her quote, she cares about lots of different issues, including animal rights, and wants to encourage her students to be compassionate citizens of the world and to treat animals as sentient beings. So we like to identify these types of teachers as role models in their community so that more teachers will feel comfortable utilizing non-animal resources in the classroom. So if you want to go to the next slide. And then I wanted to also add this quote from Bonnie Berenger. She is another high school science teacher. She's from New Jersey. But because I wanted to highlight her because a lot of times women in science, we need more women in science because a lot of times females are discouraged and disheartened when they're faced with doing dissections. So it's nice to see compassionate women scientists who are out there as change makers in their classrooms and for their students. And I just wanted to showcase Bonnie's quote here. She's also one of our former Humane Science Educators of the Year, out there doing the good work, utilizing alternatives in her classroom with her students, because She wants them to be better stewards of our planet. Next slide, please. And also wanted to showcase this wonderful supportive quote from a veterinary professor at UC Davis, Ned Michi, who never had to do any dissection as part of his career, and feels that it's totally unnecessary for biology students, undergraduate biology students. So it's exciting to see that there are so many professionals out there who support non-animal resources and who care about animals and want to make a difference for them. Next slide, please.
So there's several reasons why we want to reconsider traditional dissections. The first is that it's an archaic learning method. Dissection was introduced into US classrooms in the 1920s. So that was 100 years ago. As you know, technology has advanced greatly since the 1920s. I mean, this webinar would not exist 100 years ago. So, you know, why are we still implementing an outdated learning method when there's so many other available options? So one of those things that would not even been considered in the 1920s is 3D printing. So in the chat, I've just given you a link for 3D printable frog dissection kit blueprint. You can 3D print if you have access to one, your own frog as well as the individual organs. It's really cool, and you know, that is something that is amazing that you can do now that did not exist before. So you know, another reason that Nicole's going to get into a little bit is that it's harmful to the environment, and then another reason is that it's ethically unjust. So Nicole's going to discuss those now a little bit. If you could change the slide, please.
Thank you, Alisa. So one of the things that we have on our website is a list of different fact sheets, including the environmental impact of dissection. And as I said earlier, frogs are one of the most commonly dissected animals used specifically for dissection. And we've found through a report of U.S. Fish and Wildlife import records, we found over a 3-year period that close to 1 million frogs were taken from the wild in Mexico to be used specifically for U.S. classrooms. That's startling to think about when you're taking large populations, which frog populations, by the way, are dwindling. So when you're taking large populations out of an ecosystem, that's obviously negatively impacting ecosystems. It can increase insect populations, which can be problematic for humans, obviously. Another way that dissection is negatively impacts our environment is the preservatives that are used commonly for dissection. How could we forget that smell of formaldehyde, or the you know, the disgusting aromas that you know, permeate as you're walking past the classrooms, that science classrooms with dissection, right? So we have to think about how those things are disposed of. You know, that's something that teachers need to think about. You have to think about ventilation, proper ventilation in schools. Is there proper ventilation in schools? A lot of students and teachers have a prolonged exposure because they're in rooms that are not properly ventilated. So there are obviously health and safety issues with using formaldehyde and formalin. And obviously millions of lives are wasted. So if you want to learn more about the environmental impact, you can go to our website and check out our fact sheets at the link below. You can click on the next slide. Another way to really change people's minds, some people may not think about dissection, may not really care too much about the animals who are being used because they're already dead, for example. Well, we want to change their minds. So how can we change those people's minds? Well, we can try to get get them understand about the cost that they can save by utilizing non-animal methods. We found over a 3-year period that you can save thousands of dollars by using non-animal methods compared to dissection specimens. Why is that? Because specimens, you're buying them over and over again. Obviously, you're using them one time, cutting them up, discarding them. You're not doing that with non-animal methods, which will be a small cost for upkeep. You can utilize models over and over again, for example. So there's a cost savings when you're using dissection alternatives. So that's a very important fact, especially if you're talking to schools that have budgetary restrictions. Next slide, please. Another important fact is that students can learn just as well using non-animal methods as they can from dissection specimens. And there have been countless studies that have shown this. If you go to Animalearn's website, you'll see the link at the bottom, our fact sheets. It has a list of comparative studies, but we don't have our most recent systematic review study that I co-authored, which shows that over 95% of the studies show that students can learn just as well with non-animal methods. And you'll see on this graph here, it shows this number of studies that were in the systematic review. Majority of the studies show that non-animal methods, students could learn just as well using those compared to specimens. Next slide. One of the wonderful things that I do in Animalearn as a director of Animalearn is collaborating with other groups. So I was one of many international groups that worked on this systematic review that was published back in September in the American Biology Teacher. And they showcased it in their magazine. So it's wonderful for us to be able to direct teachers to this type of research. It shows that 95% of studies show that students can learn just as well using the 3 R's. And the 3 R's, if you don't know what that is, that's the internationally recognized standard of ethical use of animals in education. So replacing animals, what our study found is that students can learn, animals can be replaced in classrooms if they're using them to learn anatomy. And we recommended, as one of our recommendations, to phase out dissection through K-12 classrooms. Next slide, please. So what we would encourage you to do is to make kind cuts. And now we're going to discuss a lot of the different resources that you can use in place of animal specimens. Obviously, they're much more environmentally friendly. They're educationally effective learning tools. They're cost savings for school budgets when you're using non-animal methods. And obviously, there's no animals harmed. And what's really cool too is that a lot of students care, and teachers and administrators care about STEM, and that's science, technology, education, and math. So that's being taught, and STEM careers are being taught today in schools. So this aligns really well with those pathways, career paths. Next slide. So Merge is an amazing company. It's one of the newer companies that has been around when we're talking about augmented reality and virtual reality. Augmented reality is basically kind of layering, using a object, downloading an app on your phone and pointing it at your object, and you can see that, bring that object to life. What Merge does, it brings a frog dissection to life. It brings human anatomy to life. So I had been talking to, I was at a science teacher conference, and I had heard about Merge, that you could use this cube right here and it would turn into a human heart. It would turn into a lung. It could turn into a brain. And I was fascinated. So I learned a little bit more about Merge. And over the years, the past 4 or 5 years, they've grown to have this complete education platform specifically targeted for K-8 students learning STEM. And not only do they have the frog dissection, but they also have other anatomy learning experiences. So Alisa is going to kind of give you a little bit more of an overview of what you can do with a Merge cube and how you can try it out.
If you could change the slide, please. Thank you. So here's a few gifts from the Merge, and they have a few different options on their Merge edu platform. And if you look in the chat, I just posted a link so you can get your own paper cube. You'll be able to print it out, and it uses the app as effectively as the cube itself. So, you know, they have what's called the object viewer. So the little girl right there is able to hold a beating heart in her hand. So what she's actually holding is this cube, and through the augmented reality, it's transformed into a heart. They also have in the object viewer shark anatomy. So you are able to hold a shark in your hand, and then just by touching one of those buttons on the screen, you can see the skeletal system, you can label it, you can see the organs. And then there's also the Merge Explorer. So that's our augmented reality where you can have the frog in your actual environment. And then you can see the life cycle. Like Nicole mentioned, there's the dissection also. So it's really fascinating, just the different levels that you can utilize this in your own environment. And it really, having the cube is great because it gives the kids something tactile to hold on to and play with. They are squishy foam, so if they're throwing them around, it's not a big deal. They're not going to hurt anybody. And then they can see that, wow, this is right in my hand as well. And then they are using new software. It's going to be coming out with their next update, so that they can be used in Chromebooks in schools with front-facing cameras, because right now it's just rear-facing cameras. So that's a major advancement for technology and education and dissection alternatives. If you could change the slide, please. So another alternative that we have for, say, comparative anatomy and using human anatomy is called the Virtuality, as in t-shirt. So this is made by Curioscope. They explore the different body systems. So someone puts on the shirt, and then you can use their app and see all the different body systems right on that person. It's fascinating. People really enjoy this. You can, while you're in one system, say you're in the circulatory system, you can see the labels, and then you can jump into a 360 VR, so virtual reality video, and then you're in a bloodstream and there's platelets flying past you. It's crazy. You can also use the rear facing camera to track your heart rate. So if you're using it on the phone, just reach around, put your finger on that rear facing camera, and it will pick up your heart rate and then animate the heart in the app to your heart rate. It works in selfie mode, and it can be streamed to your TV or your projector, or if you're a teacher, your smart board, and that runs around $39.99. If you could change the slide, please.
Oh yeah, so I know we don't have a lot of time. I really want to get to everyone's questions, but another really cool learning tool is through virtual reality, and there's a company called Victory XR that has recently come out and developed. They've actually teamed up with a biological supply company to create a curriculum and to make virtual reality dissection a thing. So you can basically put on a headset like in the picture below, and you're fully immersed into a science class where a teacher walks you through how to do the dissection. You can pick up your scalpel, your tools, and you can cut into the frog or the whatever specimen it is you're dissecting, virtual specimen you're dissecting, and you can learn anatomy that way without any harm to any animal. So we're really excited about some of the technology, especially with augmented and virtual reality. Next slide, please.
So quite a few, sorry, I was reading the chat. Quite a few anatomy tech options. Somebody asked about if there's any, how you can access interactive online dissection. So I just posted the link for our online dissection resources page. So on that page, we have tons of options listed. We tell you whether they're free, if you have to pay, and what type of software they use as well, and give you a brief synopsis of what you're getting into and provide the link. It's organized by animal and then alphabetically. So if you are facing, a fetal pig dissection, you can look for pig and then just go from there. Couple options are Z-Space, which that uses its own hardware as well, so you do need a Z-Space laptop in order to use that. But other software that exists is Biosphere, eMind, and you can use those and select animals that they have as well. There's also Frogopedia, which is a really cool one, and that you can use the life cycle of the frog you can view. You can use AR anatomy or do a dissection, and that Frogopedia is completely AR. It's augmented reality, and so that frog that you can see in that picture is on someone's desk, and it's placed right there in front of you.
Yep, that's the bottom right. Yep.
Yes, if you can change the slide, please. So one app that just came out earlier this month is called Chick It Out. So this is meant to replace egg hatching projects in schools. My daughter did do an egg hatching project a few years ago, and when I spoke with her about this app, she went, "Oh yeah, we did that. One of the baby chicks died." And so she didn't remember anything that they were supposed to learn about it, just that one of the chicks didn't make it. So, didn't learn anything about the anatomy or anything that they were supposed to have taken home from that project. So this is 99 cents. It's available in Google Play and Apple Store, and Humane created it, and you can view inside the egg at each of the 21 days of gestation until the baby chick hatches. Then you can view the mother hen taking care of the egg. There's also an auditory aspect, so you'll hear the chick chirp, you'll hear crickets, all different kinds of things. It also provides chicken anatomy as well. And another option that we have on the Science Bank is called the Chick Life Cycle. So this is a model you can take that has different eggs in it for each of the 21 days. And on day 21, you open up your little egg, and then inside is a baby chick. So that is a very neat alternative as well. And that's available to be borrowed on the Science Bank. If you could change the slide, please. So another company is called Cindaver Labs. They make a Cindaver frog, which is made of synthetic material. There's a theme, and this is what that looks like. This is a fully dissectable frog model. It looks just like a lifelike specimen, and all the organs are removable. It's completely dissectable, and it can be reused. You can use it as a model for the organs, or they sell an organ pack, which you would implant in and to be used again and again. The cost of the frog is $150, but they sell organ packs in a group of 5 for $118.75, which averages to $23.75 a frog, or 20 if you're doing a classroom, and that averages out to about $21 per frog. As Nicole mentioned earlier, with the environmental impact, there's no formaldehyde or formalin with these models, so you don't have to worry about breathing in harmful chemicals. I just read a news article today about a school in Arkansas that did frog dissections and said that the students had to take several breaks to take breathers outside of the classroom because of the chemical smell. So, why are we exposing children in schools and then teachers year after year to those harmful and toxic chemicals, aside from using live animal specimens as well? This company also does offer feline and canine models for veterinary use, and they do individual organs. So instead of dissecting a sheep heart, you can dissect a lifelike model of a human heart. If you could change the slide, please.
So yeah, I know Leslie had brought up the fact that one parent and student used clay modeling system for their school in New Mexico. Anatomy in Clay is another really great hands-on learning tool that they are located in Colorado, and it provides a multi-sensory experience where you basically build the human anatomy on this skeletal system. You can learn the different body systems that way. I want to get through to the next, and there's more information about it. Yep.
So another company is Getting Nerdy with Mel and Gertie. This was created by 2 former middle school science teachers. They offer different paper models as well as vinyl models. And they call their models 3D science-structable models. They have a variety of different animals. They offer vertebrates, invertebrates, aquatic animals. They also sell individual dissectable animals as well as bundles. They provide you with lesson plans for 2 to 3 days of lessons, PowerPoint slides, handouts, answer keys, and they're aligned with NGSS. So anybody not in the education science field, that's Next Generation Science Standards, which I know New Mexico follows as well. Nicole is holding up one of the vinyl frog dissection models, and it comes with a tray, so it looks like it's in a dissection tray as well. Their individual models generally start around $15.95 and then go up depending on if you're doing vinyl or the bundles also. If you could change slides, please. Origami Organelles was created by 2 scientists. They are based out of the UK. The really awesome thing about this is once you buy it, and their individual models are only $6.99, you have it forever. You can print it forever and ever and ever. So if you're a teacher in a class and you're printing 30, you can do that every year for only $6.99 that you paid once. You can choose to print it in color, or you can choose to print it in black and white, have the students colored in, and then construct the model. It takes a group of students about 30 minutes to put those together, and they handle many science topics. They do a frog dissection, they do a fetal pig dissection, you can see on the slide, but they also do life cycles as well. If you can change the slide, please. And Rescue Critters is another company. They generally make veterinary models, but they also have a frog model. So here is another one. And this is a dissectable frog model, and the organ puck goes right inside. So this frog can be used over and over again, and you just dissect the organs out of it, much like the Cindaver Sin frog, except this one comes out automatically. The other one is the full body, and then you would replace the organs itself. This one runs around 120, and then it's $45 for the organ pucks. But this one you can borrow from the science bank. So if you were a teacher and you wanted to borrow this, that's an option that you have, and you can borrow that for free. If you can change the slide, please.
So yes, obviously you can see humane dissection labs are very easy to implement. You can use resources. There are resources for all different education levels. K-12, college, university, vet, and medical school. I also learned that the University of New Mexico Health Science Library just created their own anatomy tech lab. So they have an anatomage table. It's an anatomy table that you can see right there on the bottom right, where you can explore anatomy. You can upload MRIs and CT scans to learn about different diseases. So there's a lot of really wonderful resources for medical students. You want to go to the next slide, please?
So what is the Science Bank? The Science Bank, as mentioned earlier, is a free loan program for humane non-animal alternatives. So it's the only one in the US now. It was established in 1996, and we are here for teachers, we're here for parents, we're here for students, we're here for veterinary professionals, and we have hundreds of mannequins and models, as well as our online dissection resources page. So if you go to thesciencebank.org, you can view by how we organize things, and I'll show you that on the next slide in a moment. You can contact us at any time. So even if you just have a question, you might have a question about a specific model, I can answer anything. We tell you how to use everything as well. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is what our landing page looks like, and you can see the drop down arrows. You can sort by animal, just like on our online dissection resources page, or you can sort by education level if you're looking for primary school or secondary or university. If you happen to know the manufacturer, great, and you want to see what those models that they make are. Or you can search by subject matter if you're looking for life cycle, if you're looking for anatomy as well. If you can go to the next slide, please. And just real quick, I'm sorry, full disclosure, we do ask for borrowers to pay for the return shipment of the loan, but if there's any hardships or anything like that, just contact us, reach out to us, and we can work with you. Sorry about that, Nicole. Go ahead.
That's okay. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of inspire you all to take action for animals used in education. That's why we're here. We want to connect with you. We want to help you to spread the word, to plant those seeds out there, to let teachers know. If you know someone in your community that may be open to utilizing non-animal resources and they're unaware of the things that we talked about today, let them know. Give them our information. Connect with students and teachers to bring these resources. And in the classroom. Talk to them, give them the encouragement, give them the tools. We're here to help you in any way you can. If there's opportunities where you can, if there's a science fair, if there's any type of event going on where you can let teachers know about the New Mexico State Board of Education policy, I think that's a great opportunity to bring that out there as well and inform teachers, let them know that they need to provide students with alternatives. And I wanted to kind of end by giving you this inspirational video, YouTube video to look at. It's a TED Ed talk that was given by a student that was identified as one of our Humane Students of the Year from Massachusetts. And she did a science fair project about saving frogs in her school. And she is just wonderful. And I think she'll inspire you to take action for animals in your part of the world. So thank you so much for having us here, and let us know if you have any questions. We're going to do a giveaway of some activist packs. So I think we have the chat enabled now. We can do that. So I think we have time for, I was going to ask for one question.
Real quick, can we change the slide to the last slide, please?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in the chat, I've just posted a link to our YouTube page as well. So you can see how to use some of the items also on there, and just some other videos that we've posted throughout the years.
Yes, good point.
Yes, thank you, all three of you, for sharing this wonderful information. It's so cool what we can do now. I believe that we've answered all of the questions that were put in the chat so far. If anyone has additional questions, or if we didn't get to your question, if you want to enter it again, we have a couple of more minutes. We can do our Q&A.
We were going to do a giveaway of some activist packs. So can I just ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Okay, so the first person who answers our question correctly will receive this wonderful tote bag filled with some resources to help you put the life back in life science. So our first question is, what is the name of Animalearn's loan program? The first person to answer that correctly will receive an activist pack.
I see somebody answered correctly with the Science Bank.
It looks like Janelle.
All right, Janelle. So just put your email in the chat, and we will contact you, and we will send you one of our dissection action packs. Thank you. Congrats.
Yes, and Janelle, I saw what you wrote earlier in the chat, and I just do want to address that we, aside from our Humane educator, we had 4 honorable mentions, and one of our honorable mentions works at a school for adjudicated male youth, and has borrowed things, has gotten some awards of items that we have in the Science Bank. So, if you have questions about whether you can use it or not, definitely email us. You can ask us, and I will be able to answer any questions about, how the model's made, what it's made out of, and things like that. And if I don't have the answer right away, I'll do the research and get back to you. So awesome, thank you so much. And another question we have is, whoever can answer first about one of the alternative companies. So what is one of the names of the alternative companies that we mentioned? And Janelle, sorry, you're out of the running now since you've gotten the right answer, but awesome. So Stephanie mentioned Merge.
Awesome. All right. All right. So just put your email in the chat, and we'll contact you, and we will send you one of our dissection action packs. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I have one last question. So the last question, a little bit more difficult. We named 3 reasons as to why traditional dissection should be reconsidered. Can you tell me one of the 3 reasons? And whoever can answer first will get our last action pack. Yes, so Sherry has answered environmental. That is correct.
All right.
So Sherry, if you can please provide your email address as well, so we can contact you about your gift of an action pack.
And obviously you can follow us online. If you're interested in receiving our emails, you can sign up for our emails as well, but follow us on social media. I encourage you to do that and learn about a lot of the different resources that are out there, the new technologies. And we're always here. We're always happy to help. We help people all over the country, and we're happy to assist you in any way that we can with this particular issue.
All right, last call for questions. And then we can wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you again for our panelists, Leslie, Nicole, and Alisa, for sharing such amazing information with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If you'd like to learn more, you can visit our website at apnm.org and animallearn.org. That's with one L. I'll put both of those in the chat as well. And thank you everyone for attending.